but they're production cars. So like Alfa Romeo, BMW, why can't I think of it? Datsun 510s is the other great B sedan.
There's a Lotus Super
class.
7 out there too.
There is a Lotus Super 7. That's Group 8 of John Nash.
John Nash seems to be in every group.
He is. He and his wife Lorna, she's his crew chief and coach. She's always on walking around. She takes great photographs, but they are just having the time of their lives. They have 2 Lotus 7s, one set up for Group 3, one set up for Group 8. As we look at Andrew Uzarowski racing with Zotz, he's in a Group 12 Porsche 911. So let's go through. So that was, we stopped at Mark Brummond, and that have Ron Pauly actually is in a Lexus Group 12 IS300, and Ron is from near this area, from the southeast, and he actually from Arkansas. He owns a Toyota dealership, so that's why he's racing the Lexus. It's all in the family. And speaking of that, all in the family, we've got Jim Farley in that 1966 Cobra, who is the brand new CEO of the Ford Motor Company.
Wow!
Racing Ford history out there. If you know anything about Ford, their history was started in racing. It's how Henry Ford made a name for himself.
What
and now here's the CEO racing a Ford Cobra.
What can Ford do in this race? Pressure on.
Let's see.
Henry Ford, if you're up there watching, here we go. Your heritage awaits, and your CEO is out there. But it's Scott Borchetta who leads them away in that fire-breathing Corvette with the lightning stripe from Unser on the front.
Lindstrom looks inside with Gary Moore right behind in that Mercury Cougar.
And up the hill goes Borchetta, already starting to pull away. And John Nash looking rather tiny in that little Lotus Super 7, and he is very low indeed compared to the other cars, so sight can't be easy for him, but I'm sure he's got one of those taller mirrors so he can see behind him. But he won't care.
Look at that. That is a beautiful sight.
Yeah.
And if you've never been to a race like this, you've got to come out, because we're giving you some great visuals. But when you come to a vintage race, you can feel and smell these cars. You've got to come experience as Gary locks up his right front in that Cougar.
There's Nash coming through, as I mentioned. Just behind him, the 26.
Look at this Falcon. That's a beautiful car.
Rick Orton.
Bradley Steele's in the Falcon. Rick Ortman's in the Corvette. And there's Jerry. So Jerry had an off, and his crew, Bobby and Dylan Archer, put that thing back together. He's racing for a championship, so he's out there in the Viper. He's the president of his Viper Club in the Houston, Texas area. And he says it's either Mopar or no car.
So we're underway in our Group 6, Group 8, and Group 12. Qualifying, Scott Borchetta took the pole with the best time of 1:32.903, some 2 seconds ahead of the chasing group. Jeff Lindstrom, second place at the moment, Mark Hildebrand in third, Gary Moore still fourth, and John McCormick in fifth. Bouncing over the curves then, Borchetta.
We've got some spectators from Revista Sport Motos from Brazil watching. We've got somebody from Dane, Wisconsin, R.S. Mooney, watching us as we watch Hildebrand and Gary Moore go at it in these downhill and uphill S's. What a great shot that is.
2 very different cars, but also very competitive as well.
Gary is always one of our fastest drivers, and Hildebrandt's driving a Duntov-prepared Corvette. As we look at this red Cobra, John McCormick, another man from Nashville, he is a veterinarian by trade, and he and his wife love coming to these vintage races. We're so happy to have them here. Beautiful car. And then there he is, Jim Farley, in that beautiful Cobra. I love that car.
Yeah, that is nice. Now, how new is that Cobra? Because that looks pretty modern.
It's an old Cobra with Cobra Automotive. They just really take good care of their cars, and Jim, being who he is, I'm sure he wants his cars to look really, really good and presentable.
Yeah, no kidding.
He's also driving a Lola with a Cosworth engine in it with us this weekend. And he's a great guy, really good racer, but just super enthusiastic, dynamic person. So glad to have him here as this George Del Canto coming up over that bridge, getting light, coming into a treacherous turn 12 following John McCormick.
Well, if you've just joined us on YouTube or Facebook or any other platforms, or you've been watching all day on the app, we welcome you to SVRA's coverage. I'm John Jonathan Green, and alongside me, Ben Sissel. We're bringing you the action from what will be the finale, sadly not going to Laguna Seca because of the COVID pandemic. And so this will be our last hurrah, but it's the perfect conditions and the perfect circuit in many ways. It's been racing here since 1970, and a lot of these cars back in the day have had their time here at Road Atlanta. So it's an iconic circuit, as all the circuits that SVRA go to. And we're delighted to be here, and we just lucked out on the weather. It's absolutely gorgeous. Mid-70s here. It's almost like a summer's day.
Ladies and gentlemen, Michael Zock, who won a national championship with us in Group 10, is watching on Facebook. Tell us, in this group, Jonathan, what's your favorite car in this group? And leave a comment on what's your favorite car in this group.
You know what? That red Corvette. Not the 05, the Mark Hildebrand.
Andrew Uzurowski in the Zotz Racing 217 Porsche 911. I like the Porsches, but being a British car guy, I have to lean towards the Cobras in this group. That was basically a British car with an American engine. I still can't get the irony of you
being a British car guy and me being an American car guy. I can't work on that.
Yeah, the accents are flip-flopped, right?
I know.
Yeah, and that's Scott Birkeland there, our last year's Group 8 champion in the 06 Porsche 911. He is at almost a race weekend with us. Is also one of our race instructors with Kenneth Manella, who's watching from home. As we watch the battle, looks like George Del Canto took John McCormick, and there's Jim Farley sliding it through 12 like he should, coming up in that beautiful Cobra. We might have a Cobra battle here.
A double snake in the S's, so to speak.
Well, if you're new to vintage racing, the beauty of vintage racing is...
we took a wide line there, sorry.
It's kind of pack racing. So, yeah. You know, there's the group fighting for first overall, but then there's groups like this. And some of the best racing in the field is what our cameras are picking up on right now as George gets a little squirrely there. But just throughout the pack, there's beautiful racing, great cars, and there's John McCormick, and I'm sure his wife is out there watching and cheering him on. I love it when the husbands and wives really get into racing together.
Yeah, it makes the weekends a little bit easier, right?
Yeah, and look at this, a 1966 Cobra in the American colors, a hard top to make it a little bit more aerodynamic. I don't know if it gets any prettier than that as Jim locks up his right rear tire, and that's Hugh Booker in that modern Ford Mustang that I think he said it ran in the Continental Series or SCCA.
Yeah, that makes sense.
I think he said Group 2. He's a really nice guy. I met him at Turn 10 today. We are selling tickets to the Atlanta Speed Tour. You see a lot of campers. We love Road Atlanta, and we could not have asked for better weather than this weekend. I mean, didn't expect it, but thank you.
For the RV coverage here, what a day out for, you know, people wanting to stretch their legs, socially distance, and get the family out and enjoy it. What a great day. There's the Alfa Romeo. I haven't seen that yet.
Yeah, that's Mark Brummins. So he was with us in the Trans Am race in a BMW and SGT, as there's Hugh Booker in the 81. That's a pretty car.
Yeah, it is.
Jerry Robinson trying to make sure he gets his points so he can win the championship.
Now, how does a Lexus fit into all this?
You know, we get a lot of questions about that, and that's kind of why we started this Group 12. Rick Parent, our chief of tech, we wanted to allow cars that were not quite vintage. You know, there's probably modern amenities in that. There's a computer system and things like that, but it's a race car, and we want them to give a place to race, and you know, why not? And he's a great racer. He races with us quite a bit, and so that's a 2004 Lexus. Our rules are, I think it has to be, I can't remember now, I should know this, if it's 5 or 7 years old, and then these newer cars, you know, you don't really want to go buy a Lexus and prepare it. You want to buy an obsolete from a race series. It's a lot easier and cheaper.
Yeah.
But I will tell you, we'll have Rick up here later. If you want to get into vintage racing, call the chief of techs. There's Rick Ortman right there, which he did. He came through our school and prepared this car to our specs. He was our Group 12 champion last year. And he's actually an old Trans Am racer from the early 70s.
Ah, right.
And he's back at it. I love it. So that's Scott Borchetta right there in the 05. And I got to tell you a story about Scott. We were talking last night. There is not a person in our paddock, Trans Am, Radical, SVRA. I don't think there's a person in a paddock across the world, period, that is more excited about racing than that man, that has put more effort and time and energy into racing. Ray Evernham, NASCAR Hall of Famer, is going to be up here joining us in the commentator booth later. It's his fault. He got Scott into this racing, and now Scott is fully addicted, and it's like talking to a 14-year-old.
Oh, no question about it.
Yeah.
I mean, you talk about the heads of Ford. Well, Big Machine Vodka and Big Machine Records is pretty darn big company too, and he is throwing a lot of time and energy into sponsoring events, including the Nashville event.
Yeah, the Music City Grand Prix. He's all over the place. I live in Nashville, so does he. He is a huge part of country music. If you have a favorite country music artist, chances are Scott has had something to do with their career. As we watch John Nash in that Lotus 7 really sliding that car around using his hands.
He does look like the old man out, though, doesn't he, in this group?
He does, yeah, especially being followed by a Falcon. And there's that Dove Gray Alfa Romeo that was with us at Circuit of the Americas. But look at this Falcon here. I love the paint scheme. Look at the body roll on that. It looks like so much fun to drive. It's Bradley Steele, currently 14th, third in 6 TA. So in this group, there's 3 different groups racing, and then in that, there's different classes.
Now, what's chasing him? Because it's the Alpha, yeah.
So that's one of the cars we were talking about. Mayor Primo, B Sedan Alpha, and that Dove Gray. He was with us at Circuit of the Americas, and I remember us commenting on how pretty that car was.
Yeah, exactly.
So again, if you're just joining us, welcome. Welcome to Vintage Racing. Welcome to the last event of our calendar in 2020 at Michelin Raceway Road, Atlanta. Join us on our social media channels. Tell us what you want to see, what you want to hear, if you have any questions or comments, or if we get something wrong. I know that the trolls are ready to pounce and correct us, and we love the trolls. So tell us what you want to hear.
Yeah, there's about 150 of them buried in that gravel trap, I think.
Yeah, we've dug a lot of people out of there, including our 6-time today, Ernie Francis Jr. There's a shot of our car show. And if you like movies, we have the movie cars from Smokey and the Bandit.
That's cool.
Out there. And here comes Scott Borchetta coming up on lap traffic, he's got this handedly won, so he's going to let these guys race in front of him and wait for his time to pass safely. Lindstrom, I think, is currently in 2nd place overall, but he's leading in his Group 12.
Nice sounding car, too.
Yeah, he's owned that car for quite a while, he said, and just loves racing it. He was with us at Circuit of the Americas just 2 weeks ago, and here he is at Michelin Raceway Road, Atlanta.
Well, he just clocked at 1:38.5 in that last lap, but he's already clocked a 1:36.7, which is pretty handy. And Borchetta are about to get into some real traffic, and he's about to catch another Corvette. It's one of Mark Hildebrand, currently 3rd overall and 2nd in Group 6. Hildebrand leading this group through. It's amazing how different the Corvettes look with different colors, isn't it?
Yep. I love that Cougar, though. A vinyl top Cougar out here racing. That's some style right there.
I know. The more I look at this racing, the more sort of, and I don't mean it wrongly, but the more ordinary cars, the more sort of production ordinary cars, I'm more taken by, actually, to see them racing, like the Cougar. Because it's not shaped like a racing car, is it?
No, it's a brick. But I love it.
It's a brick.
So we had a question what time is Group 2, and I pulled out the schedule from Circuit of the Americas.
Well, it's been a while back then. That's
well,
good.
Maybe that means I haven't washed my pants in 2 weeks.
Ouch! And that's why we are socially distancing.
Yes.
From 3 rooms
that's
apart.
Just smart. Look at these great
Group 2
shots
you want to know,
here.
Right?
And look at this. You don't see this very often. There were a ton of these cars back in the day. Ron Fuller, 1977 Datsun 200 SX. But back in the SCCA days, this was basically kind of like a class of spec Miatas. You could kind of buy these cheap, inexpensive, I don't want to say cheap, but more inexpensive Japanese cars and race them really hard, and they created a bunch of different classes that made for some really good momentum racers. So when is Group 2?
Ben, who was your question from?
Our Group 2 question was from, actually Garth Vincent answered it. So see, even the people on our social media are answering the questions. I love it. Thank you, Garth.
2:25 Eastern is the answer. Time running out, though, in this group race,
slow.
Group
There's
6.
Scott Borchetta getting by. Oh, that's just getting by Ron Fuller. Yes, I think a big block Corvette with a 427 should get by a Datsun 200 SX that handily, but look at that. If that isn't just the picture of late 70s, early 80s.
Yeah. So we're probably about a lap away from the end of this race. And it's been quite a spectacle, as you can imagine. Car number 26 just going through our shot here. A little further down. And that is Rick Ortman in the Corvette.
And I love that beautiful Shelby GT350 of Stephen Coleman right there, racing with Dennis Althoff. Look at that. That's a treacherous turn. And as you're coming around, because it's a downhill into a braking zone, and then so your car compresses, so you get a little bit more grip than you think because all the weights come down. So you can take that turn a little bit harder, but man, if you get it wrong, you're in the grass and possibly into a long concrete wall.
So Scott Borchetta heading towards another checkered flag. He's been the champion of Group 6 for many a year and has now turned his hand quite handily to TA2, and he'll be up in action later today in the big boy stuff. So looking forward to that. Scott Borchetta with a massive lead here in SVRA, but the TA2 is a whole different ballgame because then he's up against professional, honed and veteran race drivers from all over America. And when he got on his podium, you said he was a 14-year-old, or he acts like one. He was tickle pink to be up there with the big boys. So he could do it in vintage, and now he can do it in the real deal. So that's a great way to start your career, actually, is to go vintage racing, learn the ways of a simpler car, and then maybe take it up a notch.
And I got to say, Scott Borchetta, as he gets the last lap signal, is doing more to just support racing. With his companies, he's sponsoring all kinds of different events, Big Machine Records, Big Machine Vodka.
Big Machine hand sanitizer, which he provided for everybody here.
If you are a supporter of racing, make sure that you're going to his concerts, buying his records, drinking his vodka, and using his hand sanitizer.
It's an all-in-one. It's a one-stop shop.
Racing. Yeah. He and his brother.
He also,
there's At Spa.
Right
before Spa, yeah.
Unbelievable.
And I like the Johnny Lightning. He's big friends with the Unsers, so he's got that little homage to Johnny Lightning on that Corvette.
Well, he sent me a picture of his go-kart, the first one he ever drove in, and he even had that Johnny Lightning sticker on there as well. So, closing lap, final lap here in our Group 6, Group 8, Group 12, and it's all been about Scott Borchetta, who's led by a country mile throughout this. But no big surprise, he did the same at COTA just a couple of weeks ago. Jeff Lindstrom will follow him home in 2nd place, and Mark Hildebrand actually got through to 3rd place by the end of it all. Gary Moore settling for 4th, and John McCormick in 5th.
And look for Scott Borchetta racing in TA2 at 4 o'clock today with us at Road Atlanta as he comes down 12, Jonathan.
And takes the checkered flag. Borchetta wins here at Road Atlanta.
It's a pretty car, Scott. I like that. He has a great crew. Dylan does a great job of crew chief with those guys. They put together some really cool cars. Another hit. Bill Elliott's car is going to be out there with with Scott's driver Jade Buford, who he sponsors
a bit of history this weekend, isn't it? A Bill Elliott car
in Georgia.
You know, I was talking to people the other week when Chase won the NASCAR Cup Series. Everybody talks about, you know, the Earnhardts and the Yarboroughs and the sort of famous names, Petty obviously, but Bill Elliott is not forgotten. But now his boy is doing the business.
Yeah. And Bill, it's odd not to see Bill here this weekend. He's usually here racing one of his race cars from Dawsonville, Georgia. Talking
to Bill Elliott, Bill Elliott was a 2-time winner in '88 of NASCAR, because when I say a 2-time winner, there is the most popular driver of the year and the Cup champion. And in '88 it was Bill Elliott, And in 2020, it was Chase Elliott.
Yep. I am a Chase Elliott fan.
Yeah, he's a good guy, isn't he?
I really like his dad, and his dad is here in the vintage races with us, a legend. You know, if there was a Mount Rushmore of NASCAR, it'd be hard to argue that Bill Elliott of that.
Shouldn't be on it, yeah.
You know, and so it's just really fun. It's a great finish in our Group 6, 8, and 12 races. If you're just joining us, leave us a comment. But I did just hear that Cottrell, who was in our Miata race, is third-generation racer.
Oh.
His grandpa, who is now in his 80s, raced. His dad raced, and now he's racing.
That's great. Well, we've got plenty more coming up from Road Atlanta, and it's starting to fill up here. This is just the first of 2 days of great racing from Road Atlanta. And we've got 2 championships, well, all the 5 classes of championships on the line in Trans Am. And of course, SVRA continues to entertain. So, check on the result then. Scott Borchetta of Nashville, Tennessee wins in his Chevrolet Corvette. Jeff Lindstrom in second place. Mark Hildebrand in third. Gary Moore fourth. John McCormick fifth. Then George Del Canto sixth. James Farley seventh. Hugh Booker in 8th position, Ron Pauly, and Mark Drummond. Busy man, Mark Drummond, because he was up in the TA race earlier today. Took his Alfa Romeo to 10. So we'll take a short break here from Road Atlanta. Plenty more group racing to come from SVRA. And don't forget, later in the day at 4 o'clock local time Eastern, we'll have our big TA2 muscle car Trans Am race. Join us soon.
When the finish line calls.